I just realized I don't have any earrings in, and that is gonna bother me. Once again, it's that time for the hashtag ReadFatPositive Readathon. So a couple of months ago, you might remember that I participated in the hashtag ReadFatPositive Readathon that Reverie with Allie puts on. And I think that was actually the first time she ever put it on, and this is going to be the second time. I am like 2 days late to starting this vlog, but I've already read quite a bit. So we are going to start off with that, talk about what I want to read for this week and all of my like plans and whatever. I am so excited because I am finally going to get to read Get a Life Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. And as you can see, I've already started it. I actually just put the dust jacket on so I could show you guys. But I am currently 121 pages into this book. I am loving it so much. I'm flying through it. It is so good, and I love Chloe. I love her as a main character. I can highly relate because I am the older sister. I'm the eldest, and Chloe is also the eldest, and so there's just definitely a lot of like little eldest sister things that I can relate to. I feel like she's very independent. I feel like she's a little bit of a control freak. I can totally relate to that. She's definitely like a homebody. She's, you know, a little more, not necessarily introverted, but she just likes to spend time at home. I can also relate to a lot of her chronic pain issues. I just really like how dry she is. She can be really serious, and I don't know, there's just something about her I can really relate to. So I've been really enjoying this book so far. I love it. There's something about it. It's just so cute and like magical in that sort of like everyday kind of way, and I'm really enjoying it. And then I'm also currently reading an audiobook, and this one is I'll Be the One by Lila Lee, and this is the one that came out a couple of years ago. Oh no, it didn't. For some reason I thought this came out in 2018. It came out in 2020, or at least the audiobook did. And this is the one that is about the plus size high schooler who is Korean American, and she wants to be in a K-pop group, and so she enters into this like American Idol sort of situation, but for K-pop stars, and she ends up making it through into the competition. I'm listening to it on Hoopla. I was so grateful that they had it on Hoopla because I've been wanting to read this for a while, and I'm currently 18% of the way through. I really just listened to it last night and stayed up and like played my little phone games while I listened to my audiobook. So anyway, I have that as an audiobook on Hoopla. There are a couple of other audiobooks that I have possibly lined up, so maybe I'll talk about those later. But then for physical books, I also have If It Makes You Happy by Claire Kahn. And I know that I was going to read this one last round, and I just ended up not reading it. I didn't get to it. But this time, I really want to get to it, so hopefully I will. It's not necessarily like the highest priority. Since I am already reading another YA contemporary, I don't know if I want to like read another one. So this one's not like super high priority, but I do definitely want to see if I can get to it. And then the last physical book that I have to read is If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy. This is a Cinderella retelling, modernized, and I've been highly anticipating this book. This is definitely the one I'm going to pick up after I finish Get a Life Chloe Brown. I'm so excited about it. I also have the audiobook, so hopefully it'll be just like a really fun reading experience. And I'm so excited to get to this one because I did really love Dumplin'. I loved the movie. The book was really cute too. And so I'm really excited to see what Julie Murphy does with like an adult romance. Alright, so those are the 3 physical books and 1 audiobook that I have to read for this readathon. I'm so excited. So for now, I'm going to go and I'm going to continue reading Get a Life Chloe Brown. I do have some updates because I have read more of my book. I am really halfway through it, so I'm loving it. I was having a really hard time focusing on the book as I got closer to the halfway point, not because it's bad, but because I was literally sitting at Starbucks and I could not focus at all. So I got the audiobook and it's really good. It's going by so much faster. Like I literally read so many pages by the time I got my audiobook. So that ended up being really helpful. So I recommend the audiobook. It's really good. I am loving the dynamic between Red and Chloe. Like, it's everything to me. I love their like back and forth, their banter. They really get along. They have such good chemistry. And I love that it kind of started off a little like, you know, definitely like a little bit of like clashing. I like that they've developed this friendship and now it's kind of turning into something a little more steamy, and I'm really liking it. So that is very exciting. And then also I went to Target today because I had to go take a like pre-employment drug test, and that was not fun. So I went to Target, and I actually went there to look for clothes. They didn't have anything. So I found my way over to the book section and I bought a couple of books, but these are actually poetry collections, and I'm super excited because I have read all of the poetry collections that I own and I definitely need more. So I picked up What Kind of Woman by Kate Baer, and this is just a little poetry collection. I think this actually might be the shortest out of all of the ones I bought. But as I was flipping through it, you know, there were a couple poems that caught my eye and they looked really interesting. Also, I love the cover, obviously. And then the second one I got is Where Hope Comes From by Nikita Gill. This is a cover that totally caught my eye. I can't remember if I've read anything by Nikita Gill before. I might have, I'm not sure, but definitely a familiar name, and I'm really excited to read this one as well. It was another one that I was flipping through and I really liked the pictures, as I love when poetry collections have pictures to go along with the poems. Isn't that gorgeous? And then the last poetry collection I got was Black Girl Call Home by Jasmine Mans, and this one also really caught my eye because I liked the cover, and then flipping through it there were definitely a lot of poems that caught my eye as well. So I'm super excited to read all of these, and maybe I'll do like a little reading vlog of reading all these poetry books. And I have another one. I have a poetry collection by Mary Oliver that I haven't read yet. So that one I got recently, and yeah, maybe I'll do like a dedicated reading vlog. I probably won't read all 4 of them. Maybe I'll just choose like 3 poetry collections, but that'd be really cool. Other than that, I don't really have any other updates. So I am going to go back to reading some more of Get a Life Chloe Brown, and I will update y'all when I've read more of it, or even possibly when I finished it. I almost forgot. I am still reading the book I'll Be the One, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm still reading I'll Be the One. Let's see how far into it I am. Okay, so I'm 30% of the way through this book, which is really good. I've mostly been reading it before I go to bed, so I'm not like sitting with it for very long. I do really think it's a cute book, but it's so painfully YA, and I know that like, I know what comes along with YA. I'm not trying to be like, oh, this is, you know, so childish or whatever. And it's like, well, duh, it's YA. Like, you know, what do you expect? They're going to be teenagers. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just being like, it's so interesting to kind of like, I've been reading so much adult contemporary, so much. Like adult contemporary and adult romance lately, that it's just like, now that I'm so used to adult literature, like trying to go back into YA contemporary for a little bit is like just a culture shock, basically. It's so weird. And it is really good though. I feel like if I had read this like maybe 2 years ago, I would have been obsessed with this book. It is a lot of fun though, because I'm learning a lot more about K-pop. I have like no real cultural grasp on K-pop. I have no idea. Like, I've literally watched the Blackpink documentary like 2 or 3 times. I love it, and I love Blackpink's music, but other than Blackpink, I know nothing about K-pop. Although I did see a K-pop group called the Wonder Girls back in the day when I went to go see the Jonas Brothers. They opened for them, and they were really good, but that is it. That is where my K-pop knowledge begins and ends, and this is a really interesting book to read, having like almost no knowledge of K-pop. So yeah, those were my updates. I'm glad that I remembered that I was reading that other book, because I would have totally forgotten about it. But yeah, so I'm in the middle of 2 books. I'm doing really well, and I'm hopefully going to finish both of those books, at least one of them by tonight maybe, and then both of them definitely by tomorrow. So ignore the mess behind me. I know, it's crazy. So I took a shower about like, what, I would say 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago. And I did my hair, had to re-blow dry it. It's all just blow dried at the moment. And I have been listening to Get a Life Chloe Brown for the past, what, 2 hours, I think? And I am finally done. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was so good. I really enjoyed it. The writing was so infectious. The characters were so engaging. The relationship was amazing because they had such great chemistry. And the story was just so good. Like, it was such a good mix between like characters and plot. I'm so much more of a character reader, and it, like, I don't really get super impressed by like a plot unless it's like amazing, and I really did enjoy this one. It felt like, you know, it was always moving forward. I really enjoyed that. I was worried for a little bit in the middle that they were going to kind of like drop off the plot, like it was just gonna not matter anymore, because certain books have done that before, especially romance books. They'll try to make it matter, and then like halfway through or maybe a quarter of the way through they'll just drop it off. That definitely happened in quite a few books that I read before. Whether I enjoyed the book or not, it really doesn't matter. Because like I said, I'm not like a huge plot person, but I do notice it when it drops off. But this one never really did. I was worried, but it totally picked back up, and it was great, and I felt like the resolution for the plot was really good. And I thought also that the miscommunication trope was actually done really well in this book. I knew it was coming from a mile away. I don't think anybody reading this book could like miss what the conflict was going to be. It's so obvious, but it was really well executed, and I really liked the resolution for that conflict, so that was great. I'm still in the middle of another audiobook, and that is, like I said, I'll Be the One by Lila Lee. I need to start that one again. I mean, not start it all over, but you know what I mean. So I'll start listening to that one again, and then I can also start on another book, If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy, since I finished Get a Life Chloe Brown, and I'm really, really excited for this one. Like I said, it's a Cinderella retelling, it's a romance, and I think I'm really going to like it. So yeah, I have some plans for reading. I probably should clean my room. I have so much stuff on my bed. And also I need to change my battery because my battery is flashing. So still a lot of stuff to do today, and I will talk to you all later when I've listened to more of I'll Be the One. Okay, so I have so many updates, none of them having to do with reading because I have not read literally anything since I finished Get a Life Chloe Brown. I just have not been in a reading mood, which kind of sucks because I definitely have some reading to do. Let me fix my glasses for a second. I think that they're a little smudged. So first things first is that I have a new phone, which is really cool. I bought this case yesterday for like $6 and I hate it, but I really just needed a case until a new one came in. I don't know why I didn't buy one when I bought my phone. Like, that just didn't cross my mind, so I had to buy one kind of separately. Anyway, this is my new phone. Super cute, super cool. It's an iPhone 11. I had an iPhone 8 Plus before this, and my phone had been ready for an upgrade for the past couple of months, honestly, and I just hadn't found the right time to upgrade it, and I wanted to make sure that I had like my new job lined up and everything, and that would be fine, taken care of before I upgrade my phone. So I'm kind of regretting not just going for the iPhone 12. I don't know why I didn't go for that one and I chose the 11. I think it was just like, it seemed like a lot of money at the time, but now I'm just kind of like, I probably should have just done it. Anyway, I do actually really like this phone so much. It's really nice having a phone that is so much better than my 8 Plus. It's like the quality of the pictures are better, the quality of like literally everything on this phone is better, and it has double the storage that my old phone had. So that was like the biggest thing, is that I really wanted more storage, because before I'd had like 64 gigabytes and this one has 128, I want to say, something like that. And I'm loving it so much. It's really, really good. So yeah, that's been a lot of fun. And also the new Lorde album came out, and that is so good. I'm loving it. Solar Power is just amazing. I didn't like it the first time I listened to it all the way through. It wasn't that I didn't like it, it was just like, okay, like whatever. It was kind of meh to me. But after I listened to it all the way through for a second time, it really started to click so much more. And now I'm just like absolutely obsessed with it. And I'm starting to wonder if this is what Lover stans feel like, because so many people are not enjoying Solar Power and I love it so much. Like, I will go to my grave fighting for it, and it's just such a good album. So yeah, I'm like wondering if that's like how Lover stans feel, because a lot of people don't like Lover, but the people who do are like super passionate about it. I'm kind of in the camp of like, I don't really listen to Lover all that much. Like, if I'm going to listen to a Taylor Swift album, that's not even in like the top 5 that I would immediately reach for. Like, I never think of listening to Lover besides like Cruel Summer. Cruel Summer is like the only song from that album that I genuinely listen to at least once a day. Other than that, I think that's like everything that I have to update for. I probably should get to reading If the Shoe Fits, because I do want to read it genuinely. So I might turn on the audiobook for that while I go through my shelves and see if there's anything that I want to unhaul, because I kind of am in the mood for an unhaul. I keep saying that, but every time I look at my shelves, I'm like, I don't want to get rid of any of these books. But this time I'm really going to try to be like hardcore about it, and I might actually just end up getting rid of a lot of my YA contemporary, because I'm realizing that even when I'm super intrigued by the premise, I end up not liking YA contemporary that much. Like, I know that I made that video, and I know that like I put it out there that I don't like YA contemporary anymore, but it's still hard to let go of. So I'm really going to try to be harsh when it comes to this unhaul. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe I'll make a video of it, we'll see. But yeah, I'll just probably listen to the audiobook for If the Shoe Fits. I think I have it on Audible, and we'll see how that goes. Also, I forgot to mention that I just finished I'll Be the One. So I was able to finish that audiobook pretty quickly, because I think I only had like 50% of it left, or 50 or 60. And I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Basically, my biggest issue with the book, I mean, I feel like I have a lot of like small issues with it. The biggest one was just the writing style in general just did not vibe with me at all. Like, I really liked the main character. I thought she was really strong and really, it was so clear what her passions were and how determined she was to fulfill those passions, but everything else just really fell flat for me. The characters were flat, the dialogue was boring. There were so many scenes where it would just be told to you after the fact. Like, you wouldn't actually get to be in that scene, but you would hear about it later. Not from like dialogue, but like the main character would just tell you in her internal monologue of like, we talked about this, like, you know, we went here and we talked and now we're friends or whatever. And it's like, you don't really get to see these things play out, and that was kind of a big issue for me personally. I really like to see these scenes take place rather than being told about them later. And then I was also really annoyed by the fact that like the romance didn't really start to come into play until like almost halfway into the book. Like we're introduced to the love interest pretty early on, kind of ish, like not really, but nothing, they don't ever really actually interact all that much until like 40 or 50% of the way through the book. So you don't really get a lot of time with these characters to like have any sort of connection be genuine or believable, which is like such a big issue for me. Like I've said, I think earlier in a clip, I'm a huge character-driven reader, so if I don't get enough time with the characters to see them interact, see them create this relationship, I'm not going to believe it. It's not going to be something that I can invest myself in. So I was really disappointed by this book. I think that it's really important though, because the fat representation is so good, the bisexual representation is so good, and I don't want to knock it for that. That's why I gave it a 3 instead of a 2, because I do think that it did some things right, and it was really the most important things that it did right, like the representation, and the main character was really great. But there were so many other little things that just went so wrong that it's hard to give it anything other than a 3. So I'm coming at y'all a couple of days later after the readathon has finished, and I'm really excited to talk about the 4 books that I read for this readathon. So the first book that I read for the readathon was Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert, and I read this kind of like half physically, half as an audiobook. And I really liked it. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. It was so good. I really loved the main character, Chloe. I thought she was super relatable. I thought she was incredibly likable as the main character. And I really loved the chemistry between Chloe and Red. I thought that they just worked so perfectly. I felt like the banter was there. I felt like the attraction was there. And I really liked that this book was told between their 2 perspectives, and I can't wait to continue on with this series. I am really excited about the 3rd book. The 2nd book sounds interesting as well, but the 3rd book really seems like something I'm going to like, so I'm really excited to get into this series. And then the 2nd book that I read for this readathon was I'll Be the One by Lila Lee, and I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. I read it as an audiobook. This is the only young adult book that I read for this readathon, and I think that might contribute to the reason I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. If you've seen one of my earlier videos where I talked about my feelings towards YA contemporary at the moment, you might understand why. It just really didn't work for me on a couple of levels. First of all, I felt like there were too many scenes that were told instead of shown. Like there were so many parts of the book where the main character would kind of replay what happened in a really modified sense, instead of us as the reader getting to see these scenes take place. So that was something I really didn't like as part of the story. I don't totally prescribe to like the show don't tell thing. I think sometimes that works, like you don't have to like show everything. But when so many scenes are just like told to you instead of you experiencing it, it just feels really passive and like you're not getting the full story, and it just ends up making a lot of the book feel really boring. I think the strongest part of the book was definitely the main character. I felt like she was very clearly well-rounded. She definitely had the complexities of a main character, but that meant that the rest of the characters in the book suffered from that. So yeah, there were like pros and cons, but the cons kind of outweighed the pros for me. The 3rd book that I read was actually a novella, and it's an Audible exclusive, so you can only get it from Audible, and it's called A Tale as Old as Time by L. Hay. And this was kind of a cute little novella. I didn't love it. There were a lot of things I just felt like, okay, like this is really weird. And it felt like they didn't really try to write a novella. They more tried to write an entire novel and smush it down into a novella, because writing a short story or a novella is such a different craft compared to writing a full-length novel, but I felt like the author didn't really know that, or like didn't have that differentiation, so they basically just wrote a novel and shortened it by like hundreds of pages and made it into a novella, so it didn't really work for me. But overall it was a really cute novella. It's kind of about this like young like woman in her maybe 20s or 30s, and she's getting kind of lonely, and so she adopts a cat, and the cat is like super cute, but the cat is bothersome to the neighbor and the dog, and so there's like that conflict there, and the neighbor ends up being really cute, and they kind of have this like enemies sort of deal. Like they really don't like each other, they like genuinely hate each other, and then they go on this like wild goose chase when the cat and the dog run away together. So it was cute, it was fine, but definitely not the best novella I've ever read, so it was kind of like a take it or leave it situation. And then the very last book that I read for this readathon was If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy, and this was a really great one to round out this readathon with. It was so good. 5 out of 5 stars, and definitely one of my new favorite romances. And it's super cute. It's just like such a fun, fast-paced romance, and this would be perfect for people who are looking for an adult romance that doesn't have like really any sex scenes in it at all. I was really surprised by that aspect, that like there really wasn't any deliberate or explicit mention of sex, and there wasn't even really a scene where it was like fade to black. It just never really happened in the story, which I thought was interesting, and that definitely didn't take away from my enjoyment of the book. I really enjoyed it. I'm not typically the kind of person that like goes out of their way to find books that don't have sex scenes in it, but this just kind of added to the refreshing elements of this book. And I know that a lot of people are looking for that kind of romance novel, so this might be a great one to check out. Overall, I felt like this was a super successful attempt at the Read Fat Positive readathon. I love this readathon so much. It really gives me a good excuse to go searching, deep diving for fat representation. It's really hard to find fat representation, especially outside of contemporary and romance. Like I feel like those genres have okay fat representation. Like there's definitely a fairly good chunk of it. It's not like, you know, like nearly as much as it probably should be, considering the fact that the average size in the US is a 16-18. You would think that more people would want to write about plus size women in these romance novels or even in contemporary, but it's not a lot. At least it's not as bad as fantasy and sci-fi. Fantasy is like, you are just not going to find fat representation. I think I've read almost all of the fantasy that ever gets recommended to me that has fat representation. Like whenever I ask for it, it's always just the same couple of books, and I've already read those, or I've already attempted to read them and I'm like, this is super fat phobic, and like have not finished it. So please never recommend like Girl of Thorns or whatever it's called. I've read that one. I read that one way back in the day, like way back. So yeah, already read that one, thanks. But I definitely would love to see more fantasy and sci-fi, historical fiction. What other genres are out there that I'm like, there's no I mean, I guess all of them really. Like there's not a specific category or genre that has like a good amount of fat representation besides maybe romance. But you know what I would love to see is like, you know, that genre of like Sally Rooney and Nisha Dolan and Kylie Reid, like that kind of book. I would like to see a fat main character as like the protagonist in one of those kind of coming of age in your mid to late 20s kind of book. That would be amazing. I would literally die of happiness. So if you know of any books that are like that, let me know. I would be very intrigued to read one of them. Alright, now that my rant is over, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also go ahead and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, TikTok, Storygraph. All of the links are down below, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!
Ooh, I thought it'd be me and you.